What if one simple competition accidentally fed every hungry person in your entire town, all in a single afternoon? Stay with me all the way to the end of this one, because the story is warm and sweet and completely true, and I promise it is going to make you smile in the best possible way. It is April 12th, 1887, and the small town of Millhaven, tucked into the gentle rolling hills of rural Ohio, is buzzing with the kind of excitement that only comes around once a year. It is County Fair Day. Now, the Millhaven County Fair is not a grand affair by any stretch. There is no Ferris wheel, there is no grandstand. What there is a livestock competition, a seed display, a fiddle contest that always ends in mild controversy, and most importantly, the pie baking competition. The pie baking competition is the crown jewel of the entire event. Women from every farm, every village, and every hollow within 20 miles spend weeks preparing. Reputations are built and lost at this table. Friendships have been tested, grudges have been born. This is serious business. At the center of this year's competition is a woman named Margaret Eloise Harding. Margaret is 53 years old, sharp as a tack, and has placed second in this competition for 9 consecutive years. 9 years. Always second. Always behind her neighbor, a perfectly pleasant woman named Clara Boone, whose apple pie is so good it has been described in the county newspaper as an almost spiritual experience. This year, Margaret decides is the year. She bakes not 1 pie, not 2, she bakes 14 pies. Different fillings, different crusts, different techniques, all perfected over months of quiet, focused, slightly obsessive preparation. Her husband, a gentleman named Robert who has eaten more experimental pie in the past 6 months than any human being should reasonably be expected to consume, offers only encouragement and the occasional nap. By the time Margaret loads her wagon on the morning of April 12th, she has 14 pies carefully wrapped and stacked. Her neighbor, Clara, arrives with her traditional single apple pie, golden, perfect, and absolutely infuriating. Word spreads through the fairgrounds quickly. Margaret Harding has brought 14 pies. The judges are going to need more time, possibly more judges. And here is where the story takes its wonderful, unexpected turn. The fair organizers, a well-meaning 3-man committee led by the town's postmaster, a round, cheerful fellow named Ezra Pitts, realize they have a problem. 14 pies must be sampled and judged. The judges can only eat so much, and fair rules clearly state that any competition entry not fully judged must be removed from the premises by sundown. Ezra Pitts looks at 14 beautiful pies. He looks at the fairgrounds full of families, many of whom have traveled hours to be there and packed only modest lunches. He looks at his 2 fellow committee members. And then Ezra Pitts makes a decision that will be talked about in Millhaven for the next 40 years. He announces, in his big postmaster voice, that all judged pie entries will be made freely available to every man, woman, and child at the fair, effective immediately following the competition results. The crowd goes absolutely silent for 1 full second, and then they cheer so loud that the horses flinch. What follows is one of the most purely joyful afternoons in Millhaven's recorded history. Margaret's 14 pies, Clara's single legendary apple pie, and the 6 additional entries from other competitors produce enough food to serve over 300 people. 300 people, fed entirely by a pie competition that simply got a little out of hand. Families who had scraped together just enough for a fair day outing get a full, sweet, and generous meal. Children who had never tasted cherry pie or sweet potato custard try both in the same sitting. An elderly widow named Hattie McGraw, who almost did not come because she could not afford the entry fee, sits at a long wooden table and eats 3 slices of different pies while someone plays the fiddle nearby. She later tells the county paper it is the finest day she has had in years. Oh, and the competition results? Margaret Harding wins. Finally, gloriously, after 9 years with her brown butter pear and ginger pie, a combination so unexpected and so perfect that one judge reportedly sets down his fork and just stares at the ceiling for a moment. Clara Boone places second. She is, by all accounts, entirely gracious about it. Robert Harding is woken from his nap in the wagon to hear the news. He cries a little. Nobody mentions it. Here is what stays with me about this story. Nobody planned for 300 people to be fed that day. There was no charity drive, no organized effort, no committee meeting about community outreach. There was just one woman who baked 14 pies, one postmaster who made a generous call, and one afternoon that became something nobody in that town ever forgot. The biggest acts of kindness are rarely planned. They are the ones that happen when someone simply decides to share what they have. What do you have that is worth sharing today? Before you head off, I want to sit with you for just a moment longer. Margaret Harding's story survived because someone wrote it down. Because someone in that town thought, this matters, this deserves to be remembered. And now, more than 100 years later, it is making people smile all over again. Think about the stories sitting inside your own family right now, the ones only you know. The grandmother who did something extraordinary and never once called it brave. The moment your family turned a corner and everything changed. The funny, tender, irreplaceable details that exist nowhere else in the world except in your memory. Those stories are not just nice to have. They are the pies you have been baking your whole life. And there are people who need them. Your children, your grandchildren, the people who will come after you and wonder who you really were. Do not let those stories disappear with you.